So oftentimes I have like a weird sense of priorities, I think, and I don't necessarily know where it comes from and why I do certain things. I just kind of do them. But over the weekend, I had so many albums that I thought were very interesting to check out. I was so excited to listen to so many of them, and but for some reason, I ended up checking out the YBN mixtape because I guess it was part of curiosity. You know, I was so curious to see how they would have progressed from what I last heard of the group, which is just YBN Nahmir's mixtape from 2017, which I actually made a review of over here as part of like a series of listening to all the members of the freshman class. But I listened to YBN Nahmir's mixtape last year, and what I kind of said was that I felt that I was underwhelmed by it because I thought that based on what I had seen of his from the freshman class, he seemed like he had a lot of potential, and I understood it though. It was like this was before that, so this was before he kind of blew up. So it was understandable, and I listened to it. I was kind of disappointed, but I was okay with it because I saw lots of potential in his like lyrical ability, his flow. He seems like I have a very special kind of unique candor to him. So I thought, cool, I'll check him out, and I liked his background, so I thought it was kind of funny, the whole video game thing. So we have YBN the mixtape, and this is actually mostly a compilation of tracks that were released over the past year by three members, by YBN, Cordae, Nahmir, and Almighty J. I didn't know there were three. I thought there were more of them. I had never listened to Almighty J, but I have listened to Cordae, who I was a big fan of, and I guess to some degree, when I was listening to this mixtape, it was hard for me to really assess what to make of it because one, what is a mixtape even? Like, how do you I guess when you talk about something, when you think about something, you have to kind of put a framework around them, and it's hard for me to put a framework around a mixtape because the mixtape I think is such a meaningless term. The best I can understand it today is that a mixtape means that it is a piece of work that is not necessarily given as much seriousness as compared to like an album. So you have that is I think the most the best way to describe a mixtape, I think, because any other kind of mix thing is, and that's actually not even the best thing to call a mixtape really, because you have Chance the Rapper that kind of bucks the trends on that because he has three incredibly cohesive and successful mixtapes, that at least the last three he made. But yeah, I mean, so what is a mixtape? The thing with mixtapes is that 10 to 15 years ago, mixtapes I think had such a different meaning that they do now, and I think it's definitely been influenced by the streaming game because right back then, say we listened to like an early Kanye West mixtape or an early Lil Wayne mixtape. Let's say we listened to, I don't know, the Drop number 3, for example. You hear that, and then what makes the mixtape different from the album is that the mixtapes back then would heavily incorporate samples of songs that were not cleared. The idea was that you want to kind of get your voice out there, get your lyrics out there, get your bars out there without having to go through the intermediaries of, say, labels. And you like certain beats and you want to put it out there, but you understand that one, you cannot make money off it, and also you cannot necessarily perform it live because of the problems of the samples. Clearing samples is expensive, and we don't want to spend money, but we want to kind of make music still. And that's how, I guess, that's kind of the idea of how well people can make music without having to spend so much money. So back then, for example, on the Drought 3, the first song, the intro of the Drought 3 opens up with him sampling, among other songs, he sampled Kanye West's Jesus Walks, and that's something you can kind of do when you have these mixtapes, because there's like it's like a gray area where people don't actually prosecute or anything. Not all the time, sometimes they do. But it's part of the mixtape game that you cannot make money off it, but it gets your name out there. Now the difference right now is that people use the mixtape as a term, but then because they use songs that are not sampled, it's purely produced. If they do sample, they actually clear the samples. Mixtape making right now is kind of on a different level of sorts, in a different category of things, because you have artists like Chance the Rapper who have high quality producers, and you can kind of compare them with like the Clivia demos of the world. It's hard to really make a direct comparison. For example, I recently listened to Earl Sweatshirt's Earl again. I haven't listened to it for several years, and I checked it out, and I realized almost all were produced by Tyler the Creator. But for some reason, it wasn't on the streaming services, so I guess maybe there was something to do with the way it was formulated, where it has samples that were uncleared or something. Same with like Frank Ocean, for example, with Channel Orange. With Nostalgia Ultra, where he samples not just bits of movies, he samples like video game sounds, and he samples dialogue from Ice Wide Shut. He samples a Coldplay song, and among many other things. So that album, that mixtape is not online. But right now, mixtapes, again, because they're made of original songs, it's become more of a sense in which people just want to release music without having to kind of have people treat it as part of their overall body of serious work. So, for example, you have people like Young Thug maybe who have like who are so prolific. They make so many mixtapes, uh, and then you or even like, yeah, and I guess the album for some people is a way of legitimizing themselves as like it's something you kind of put out there to get bought and put you up the Billboard list or whatever. Although you have Chance the Rapper kind of going against stuff like that, and Drake's if you're reading this, it's too late was labeled a mixtape. So yeah, I mean it's difficult to really. So again, framework for mixtape confusing, hard to tell. And also what is YBN? YBN so confused. They're three members, but they're not like Migos. They're not three people performing in every song. They are three separate artists who happen to make music together sometimes, and they don't have one song where they don't even have one song. They have like 16, 17 songs on the album, maybe more. I forgot the number. It's probably more, I think. But they don't have any song where they have all three of them in one song, which is weird. Cordae is only collaborates with them on I think two or three songs. Most of it is really just separate. They're mostly separate artists who just happen to have the same kind of tag name on there, and they make music separately. Personal favorites, I like Cordae the most because Cordae I feel is the most lyrically minded, and I think he puts more thought into his music, which you can tell by the amount of his music. There's very few number of Cordae songs, and they're all fire. They're all great. They're all really well thought out. The concepts are kind of fluid, and it's nice to listen to, and they're all great songs. But then you have people like Nahmir, who has many songs, not all of them hit, as well as with Almighty J. Nahmir, Almighty J, Cordae. Again, they're not a trio. The closest comparison I can make to them is maybe Odd Future. I remember listening to a lot of OF Tape Volume 2 back in the day, and that kind of had the same kind of thing where they had different artists. Sometimes they collaborate with each other, but Odd Future was a much larger collective. This seems more like just really weird kind of three members. They're all just three members under the same collective, but they're not really making music with each other. I guess perhaps it's similar to Young Money, maybe. Yeah, I guess more like Young Money, because Odd Future they weren't necessarily singular artists on their own. Like Brockhampton, for example, they're not singular artists on their own. I think Brockhampton's different also because they're all collective and they make songs together, and it's about the collective group, not the single individual. For this one, it's definitely about the single individual, so maybe it's like Young Money. Now, what was the name of that Young Money tape? The one with Bedrock on it. I forgot what it was called, but I remember listening to that when I was 13. And that was like the big thing back then. So I guess it's hard for me to tell what I think about YBN, the mixtape. Personally, I think that what I find interesting is you have the different rap groups. You have, let's say, Brockhampton. Let's say even early Young Money. You have Odd Future. Maybe let's talk about like Migos, even though they're not a rap group per se. They are kind of right now in retrospect because the three of them have kind of branched out to different projects. But the thing with what is this called, YBN, is that I don't think there's anything that necessarily differentiates them from the rest in terms of its collective group, because they're not a collective group. They don't have a singular style. Nahmir is most effective, I think, in terms of his flow. He has a good flow to him that is kind of unique. He has, again, like I said earlier, he has like a unique candor to him that differentiates him, and sometimes when he tries to have more introspective lyrics, I think it works quite decently. Almighty J, I can't seem to get a handle on. I find like he doesn't really rap about anything, particularly that I find intriguing. Cordae, I think, is the most lyrically talented, and I think Cordae is actually the most fascinatingly portrayed in the mixtape because you are able to kind of hear different versions of him. So you hear Cordae in his own songs where he is more, they're more trap oriented, and they're more straight up single songs. And then the songs that he features on, for example, the song he has with Almighty J, I think, I forgot what it's called, Feel It Up or something, or whatever. I think that song really highlights his versatility. Almighty J kind of ruined the track, to be honest, but Cordae has a lot of versatility in that song. I think is great. As well as he also shows much more versatility as well with the song he does with Nahmir, which I forgot what it's called. I should have these songs pulled up towards the end of the mixtape. But he has a song with Nahmir, which I thought was actually fun to listen to. It was a good change of pace for both Nahmir and Cordae because they it make me feel like I think it showed different sides of them that we don't hear necessarily from their music on their own. Other than that, I mean, I like them all, I guess, to some degree. Actually, I prefer Cordae and Nahmir. Cordae much more than the rest. The thing with with Nahmir and Almighty J is that they have a general kind of trap vibe to them. General songs that I feel remind me most. If I was going to compare them with Odd Future, for example, it reminds me of like the lesser members of Odd Future, which they were like they had good flows. They were in good song. They were in good trap, not trap. They were in good like hit songs that were people would love to listen to, but it was never something that you would kind of differentiate them as an artist from. It was like it's like they're in a great bottle, I guess, as opposed to having they're not they're like they're liquid and it's a liquid in a great container, but then by great I just mean like it's a successful container that is proven to be kind of successful, but not necessarily in terms of just their actual the contents of the things are not necessarily distinctive or unique in any kind of way. So that's kind of a thing. And again, the reason why I'm kind of confused by it earlier is because it doesn't have any unique... When you hear them all together back to back to back, the sounds kind of get tiring because it's kind of very samey apart from that song with Nahmir and Cordae towards the end. And the highlights are clearly the singles that they kind of released earlier. I do like the first two songs on the mixtape because I remember that was like, oh, this is fun music. And then it just kind of feels like the same thing over and over. But anyway, that's what I thought about it. I don't want to really... I'm not like an expert on rap or an expert on mixtapes or an expert on any of this. I am just kind of, interested and kind of curious to see what these new generation of people are doing. People my age, people a bit younger than me. So that's what I thought about it. That's kind of it.